Aloha, and welcome to the Sylvan Bell Business Growth and Exit Strategy Podcast, your guide to building companies that command maximum multiples. I'm Sylvan Bell, author of 5 books on business strategy and sales, creator of the Sell Framework, Scale Framework, and Driver Test. I work with owners of $10 million to $250 million companies, whether you're scaling for growth or positioning for a profitable exit. Each episode breaks down one framework, strategy, or concept you can apply this week to grow revenue systematically, scale operations, and maximize enterprise value. Let's get started. Welcome to episode number 42, how to read body language in business negotiations and M&A deals. What buyers and sellers reveal without saying a word. So I want to start by telling a story. It was probably 2006, 2007, and I was doing in-home sales. I was selling heating and air, and I was searching for every advantage that I could to close one extra deal per week, per month, per year to get my numbers up. I was on the path to being a champion. And so where everybody else was searching for high pressure, I was looking for the advantages in communication. And through my research, I found this guy named Dr. Kevin Hogan. And he had a course that you could buy from him, and it taught body language. So I bought this course and I went through it, and then I emailed Kevin and asked him a whole bunch of questions. And then I emailed Kevin again and asked him a whole bunch of questions, and we became friends. So Kevin and I are very good friends. I have to give credit where credit's due. I learned a lot of this from Kevin. During that time period, I sought out any body language expert or quasi-expert that I could to get that advantage, to be better at communication, and even close deals where applicable. So we are going to start from the very beginning, and we have to start with probably one of the most important conversations, and is what is baselining in body language, and why do I need to know about it in deal making and M&A? When you're looking to read body language or nonverbal communication, you really want to start with what's normal for people. What are their normal actions and reactions? Now, if you watch enough of my videos, I touch my cheek. That's a common thing for me to do. I look to the side, and what you're looking for is my most common tells. And you really want to baseline and figure out, hey, what does Scott do? Right? If you're going to baseline me, you're going to say, what does Scott do? And then what you're going to do from there is also look for, where is Scott out of sync? Where is that not true? What does Scott do when he's angry? What does Scott do when he's frustrated? What does Scott do when he's happy? So replace my name for anybody else's. And you start baselining, you start paying attention. And one of the best places for you to do this is a low risk situation is a bar. People after 1 or 2 drinks tend to loosen up, and their tells, their baseline, their body language is easier for you to read. So you go to the bar, you grab a cranberry juice or a seltzer water, and you just observe and try to guess what's going on with the conversation, what emotion is going through the people who are having the conversation. And then start, okay, so here is a lean, here is a touch of the face, here is a grab of the elbow. And what you're really trying to do is figure out what common baselines most people have. And from there, it makes it easier. It doesn't make it easy. It makes it easier for you to read nonverbal communication and body language. Is baselining verbal or nonverbal in deal making and M&A? Well, there is pairs to this. There are pairs of information. If you turn off the sound and you're just watching, absolutely, you're totally baselining just on view. But when you're listening and you're searching for, how was that word said? What was the timing in between words? Was there a pause? Was there a long pause? Was there a speed to the answer and then a touch of the face? You don't want to go in and do a cold read if you've never read body language or read nonverbal communication before. And so tying it to how people speak and what they say, their pace, their tone, their distance between answering a question, their volume, all of this matters. And so baselining verbal or nonverbal in deal making and M&A, you can absolutely use to your advantage. Now, I will share something with you. When people are under duress or when they're tired, their dominant traits show up faster. I'm going to give you one more example. When people drink alcohol, one of the things that happens is they may become more exaggerated, and their body language tells may become quicker. And sometimes what people will do they will take you to a bar and they will get you a little inebriated. And what they're doing is they're seeing, one, who you are, but two, they're searching for baseline. They're searching for, we're looking for advantage too. And there are deal making teams out there that are after every advantage that they can get. And they hire body language experts, they hire tonality experts. One mistake in a meeting can uncover a problem, an issue. We're talking way past Excel Eddie. I'm not saying this is everybody, but I will share with you, I do know of one or two teams that do this. How do I read body language or nonverbal communication during a business negotiation if the other side is losing interest? Interest happens from eye contact. Interest happens from smiles. Interest happens from the direction that people's bodies are tilted towards you. So let's start with eye contact. If you're going to baseline and you're going to read somebody, one of the places to look is how long do they look at you before they look to the side or they look down. And if it's typically 3 seconds or 7 seconds, everybody's going to be a little bit different on this. There's no real guide or standard per se that's going to give you, well, everybody's at 7 seconds. That's not true. There's a lot of reason for this. So you want to see eye contact. Now, somebody who is intentionally thinking of something may look to the side so they're not distracted. You're looking for, or have they checked out? Are they flipping through pages on their book? Are they reading emails on their phone? Are they flipping through their website on their laptop? Are they twiddling their thumbs? You're looking for signs of boredom. You're also looking for signs of excitement. Somebody may sit on the edge of their seat and lean forward, and not to be aggressive, but they're excited about the deal. And so you're going to want to watch the spectrum that people have when they're happy, when they're sad, when they're upset, when they don't have a feeling. I have a feeling that I call oatmeal because it's just lumpy. It's like there's not really a feeling there. So like when people have an oatmeal feeling, we're like, it's not bad, it's not good, it is what it is. And you really want to start paying attention to guess where people are and see what's going on in their world. And you can ask them, hey, how are you doing today? And if they go, well, not so good, you're mentally going to make a shift in your mind and say, hey, what was that like? Because what you could do is you could pick up on what's going on in the nonverbal communication or the body language. Now, what you need to know also is your reaction matters. So just like you're reading them, they're reading you. They're looking for cues. So when you say, how do I read body language during a business negotiation if the other side's losing interest, they're doing the same thing to you. And you really do need to know what your body language is like. How do I practice my body language and learn my baseline? One of the easiest things for you to do the next time that you have a meeting, the next time that you have a presentation, the next time you just have a conversation is to pull out your cell phone and put it on a tripod, put it up against a book and record yourself and just let the conversation happen. And what you're going to do is you're going to do this a couple of times. You're going to watch. So public speakers do this, just so you know. I've done this multiple times. For 10 years, I was a corporate sales trainer. I would record every session and then I would go back and watch. And then I would say, okay, here's the mistakes that I'm making. And over time, you become polished. It's not something that's going to happen in an afternoon. But what you're looking for is what are your go-to tells. If you are playing poker, which has a lot to do with how you negotiate, this really does matter. And what you want to do is get your common nonverbal cues down when you leave a point of impact, when you're diminishing an idea or a concept, or when you really need to show confidence but not arrogance. How do I prepare to meet with the other side and learn their body language? Anytime that you can watch video of them, that's going to help you because you could go back and replay and listen to some of the tonality. But when you meet for drinks, when you meet for dinner, when you have your initial conversation, when they're on Zoom, if you're allowed to get the replay, you don't have to worry about this real time. But if you can watch the replay of interactions of video, you can see what people's tells are. You can see what they're doing. You want to be able to gather intel from the people that you're around. And the best place to start is low value situations. I wouldn't wait for an important meeting to do this. I would absolutely practice this by just going out and watching random people at the bar, random people at dinner, somebody at the grocery store, the supermarket. You really want to get a feel for how people communicate. And what you're going to do is you're going to build a reference library in your mind and say, these are the normal routines or actions. Okay. And then one of the things that you can do is if you're at a bar and you're trying to guess, you could be friendly and go over to the people and have the conversations. And this helps you know what you can do. What does the body language tell you during a letter of intent conversation? Well, a letter of intent, if at all possible, can be done face to face. It could be done over a Zoom. And if it's done over the phone, you're not going to be able to read body language or nonverbal communication. It'll just be vocal pitch and tone. So what you're looking for is the blowback, like, whoa, like I wasn't expecting that. That could be good or bad. Good meaning, hey, you're offering more money than what I expected. Bad could be, we're not even close. So somebody may lean back if they're sitting down. Okay. Somebody, if they're disgusted, are going to show the top of their gums. So people who have disgust, there's micro expressions. Dr. Paul Ekman figured this out. There's 6 universal micro expressions, and one of them is disgust. They'll show the entire tops of their teeth to show their gums. That's disgust. They may show contempt. Okay, so contempt, the way that it works is it shows up in your opposite than your predominant hand. So I'm right-handed, and contempt is a half smile on the left side of my face, and it could be for half a second or it could be a little bit longer. And contempt means no respect. Contempt is never a good situation for you to be in. And what you're looking for is what people are saying and what people are not saying. So sometimes during LOI conversations, people will look at the LOI and they'll shake their head no. And they'll purse their lips. So they'll smash their lips together and raise their lips. No. Okay. Or they'll show a sign of contempt. Once again, I'm right-handed. Contempt's going to show up in the left side of my face. And what you need to know is those signs allow for you to adjust real time. You can ask them, hey, it feels like something just happened here. It doesn't seem like you're happy with what we have. Like, you want them to get the conversation out. You want them to tell you what's going on. And sometimes people say, well, don't let them have the conversation. I would, me personally, in a negotiation, I would rather know right now what the problem is, because I don't want to let it sit and fester. And so this is how you're using nonverbal communication or body language to your advantage, because instead of just, we're going to let it go, we're not going to say anything, you could ask them questions. And if you're wrong, they're not going to care. That's one of the beauty. I learned this from Chris Voss, and I asked him about this when I met him in Louisville, Kentucky. I said, Chris, what happens if I ask a question and I'm wrong? He said, people will correct you. Let them correct you. It's a human nature thing. It's okay. Like, let it go. Like, this conversation happened at the back of the room. And so I trusted Chris, and I've used this ever since. So when I see something happen and I ask somebody a question and I'm wrong and they correct me, it's not like they want to hurt me. No, that's not what's going on at all. They'll give me the answer. So I learned this from a negotiation expert, Chris Voss. I want to give credit where credit's due. How do I use body language to project confidence when presenting my business to a private equity firm? One, you practice. If you're going to pitch, you are not going in cold. And I will share this with you. On the deals that I'm on, we rehearse. When we have meetings, we rehearse the meetings. When there's a team that's going to speak, we pick a spokesperson. And every part of nonverbal communication is, what do you have in the background of your screen? If you're going to present via Zoom, you have to know that you have to have a professional background. Like, I have a 6-foot painting behind me of Benjamin Franklin and a $100 bill. That's acceptable. What wouldn't be acceptable is a clothesline, right? That's going to, why are you showing up to a business meeting in a clothesline? I'm in a Aloha shirt. I'm in a Ren Spooner gold Aloha shirt, right? Subliminal for you because it's the gold standard. And I'm in a jacket. I didn't show up to give a presentation not prepared. Now, some people may say, hey, Scott, a polo's fine. Yeah, that's cool. But really think about it. If you're going to give a presentation, you want to know what's in your background. You want to know what you're wearing. You want to, if you have hair, I don't have hair. So if I was going to give a presentation, I would shave my head that day or that afternoon or that morning. I would, if I had a beard, I would trim it. I want to show up and be presentable. I want to show up and give the first impression so that in the first 3 to 10 seconds, people either say, hey, I like this guy and I'm going to pay attention to him, or the negative of that is bad for you. So when you're projecting confidence to a buyer, to a private equity firm, to anybody, you want your surrounding to be your advantage. You want to know where you sit in a chair to be the most comfortable. There are companies out there that play games, and what they'll do is they'll give you uncomfortable chairs on purpose, so you can never get ground or leverage inside of a meeting. And it doesn't happen that often, but when you know that it does, they're looking to see how uncomfortable you are. It is a game. It's not cool. It happens, and you need to be aware of it. What are the body language signals that a deal is about to fall apart during due diligence meetings? The body language that people have of contempt and disgust are 2 easy ones to tell. When somebody is blown away in a meeting, in a conversation where they fall back in their chair, sometimes people will pound their fist on a table. I have seen grown adults throw temper tantrums during negotiations because that was their one thing that they knew that they could get away with and nobody had ever seen it before. So what you want to be aware of is, what are the people doing? Now, in dating, and this has everything to do with business, in a social circle, if I walk up to a group of women and the woman that is attracted to me rotates her feet towards me and points her feet towards me, and I look down, I know that I have an opportunity to at least have a conversation. When people eject out of a deal, one of the things that they'll do is they'll turn their chair. It's a subliminal sign that they're looking for the door. In dating, when somebody doesn't want to talk to you, or in a social setting when somebody doesn't want to talk to you, they'll start pivoting their feet. The business version of that, if you're sitting down, is they're going to pivot their chair. If you're standing up, which I don't recommend, they're going to start pivoting their feet towards the door, or their body. They're going to start rocking their body towards, like, hey, I got to get out of here. Like it's like a 10-degree shift of the shoulders. Like, hey, I got to get out of here. And so if you're losing a deal and the deal's falling apart, besides contempt and besides disgust, those are 2 things that you're going to find. How do I know a potential buyer is genuinely interested or just gathering information by reading their nonverbal signals? One of the items that I mentioned previous for you as a homework assignment is to go out and watch people in general. And what you're looking for is the wind down of a conversation. What you're looking for is the signals when somebody wants to leave. They're going to tilt their body. They're going to start facing towards the door. They're going to start closing books. They're going to start closing down laptops. They're going to start putting their cell phones in their pocket. They're going to start shutting things down. Like, think about like when school was over and you were packing your bags. This is one thing to look for, is like, okay, if the potential buyer is interested, they're going to stay interested. They're going to have good solid eye contact with you. They're going to keep their body rocked towards you. And when they're disinterested, all the pack-up signs start showing up. What body language mistakes do business owners make when meeting with buyers for the first time? 1, not having a game plan. You really do want to look at your body language. You do want to look at your nonverbal communication when it comes to how you interact with people. And I will share with you that it is uncomfortable the first time that you do it. And it's a little bit less uncomfortable the second time. And it's a little bit less uncomfortable the third. It gets easier over time. But, if nobody's ever told you, then it's really easy to be super critical. But I'm going to share with you, be gentle on yourself and say, this is the learning path. There's going to be times where for me, there's times where it's uncomfortable. For me, there's times where I'm like, this is my advantage. This is the one thing in the market that most people don't know how to do that I am excellent at, that I can work to my advantage. So I'm going to. So mistake is not preparing. A mistake is being inebriated. A mistake is letting the other side get to you. Sometimes, and I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes there are investors and buyers that play games to see and get you angry at meetings to see what your tells are. They're playing poker. They're looking for your tells. And once again, it's not everybody, but if you're not prepared and you're not taking the meeting seriously, and you're saying, hey, it's an off the books meeting. All meetings are on the books. How do you act with servers? How do you act with front staff? How do you act with your assistant? How do you act with their staff? How do you act with their assistant? How do you talk to people on the phone? Some of this isn't nonverbal or body language. Some of it's common courtesy. But you're going to start seeing, hey, what do people do? Now, on your side, when you're meeting with potential buyers, you could also look to see how they treat the servers. You could see how they treat your staff. And it can be indicative to how they're going to treat your team. And you may decide this organization isn't somebody that I want to deal with. How does seating position affect power dynamics in a business acquisition meeting? There are a couple of things that you could use to your advantage. I'm going to mention one that I learned from Dr. Kevin Hogan, and that is to, when possible, sit in somebody's right eye. There's a bunch of studies that say that people are more favorable to you when you're in their right eye. For 90% of the population, this is true. So I'm going to say, sit in somebody's right eye where possible. So if you're sitting across the table, you're going to line up your chair just a little bit offset so that you're slightly in their right eye. And if they're in a big table, then you can sit kitty corner next to them. But remember, you want to be in their right eye. And you can rearrange a table. I have a hearing problem, legitimately, and I have no problem letting people know this. And so I will ask people, can we move around because I have a hearing problem? So if you have a vision problem, a hearing problem, a spatial issue, you could use all of this to a normal conversation. And I have never had a problem where somebody goes, oh, you're trying to jockey for position. No, like most people are going to be accommodating the beginning of a meeting. Like, hey, is it all right if we just sit side by side and have this conversation? I don't really like being across the table. It feels kind of ooky to me. And I want to use a little kid word on purpose. I'm going to use everything to my advantage. Nonverbal communication, body language, problems that I have in my life. So sitting does matter. Next to the people, if possible, in the right eye, never across from a far table. Like that's a bad position. And message from your sponsor, Sylvan Bell. That's me. If you're getting value from this episode, here's how to go deeper. First, subscribe to my weekly newsletter, The Party, at scottsylvanbell.com. That's where I share the strategies, frameworks, and case studies I don't release anywhere else. You'll get one actionable insight every week you can implement inside your business immediately. Second, while you're on the site, download the complete Cell Framework, Scale Framework, and Drivers Test, all free with scoring guides, worksheets, and step-by-step implementation checklist. These are the same frameworks I use with $10 million to $250 million companies to build systematic revenue, scale operations, and maximize enterprise value. Go to scottsylvanbell.com right now, subscribe to the newsletter, grab the frameworks, and let's keep building companies that command maximum multiples. Let's get going. How does vocal tone and pace control the energy in a high-stakes business meeting? We're going to talk about two different groups. We're going to talk about you and your side and them and their side. You and your side, there's going to be things that get to you. And there's going to be things that irritate you. And what you need to practice is your team sitting down with you saying, here's the valuation. Now, if you were expecting 10 million, we're going to practice at 30%. We're going to practice at 3%. So that there's no crazy wave of emotion. So that there's no frustration. And you're going to practice your answer. You're going to practice your response multiple times. The number that I like to use is 60 times because it's a good number for you to get the repetitions in. I believe I learned that from Chris Voss. So what you're looking for is, are they still sitting or are they packing their bags? And your team needs to be aware of what they're doing and how they're interacting. And so filming them and having a conversation and saying, look what you do when you get bored. Look what you do when you're interested. Look what you do when you disagree. Because if you can work on yourself and your team, you're not signaling that the deal is over, which is going to get them to react to the signal, okay, we're going to pack up our stuff. I have seen deals that should have closed, but one person on the team made a mistake and started packing stuff up, and it signaled to the other team, we're done. So you're looking for the clues when somebody's, I'm done, I'm out, I don't really want to continue this conversation anymore. How do I read a room when I walk into a meeting with multiple buyers or investors at once? When I walk into a room, I scan. I look around the edges and I look in the middle. Like the people who are the introverts tend to be near the walls. The people who are the extroverts tend to be in the middle. This is not an exact science, but I'm looking for the people who have the most amount of attention drawn to them. And when I walk into a room, I make sure to introduce myself to everybody because I want everybody to know who I am. When you're going into a room and saying, hey, I'm here to have a conversation, you're showing confidence. You're looking people in the eye. You're shaking people's hands. You're having a genuine conversation. You're keeping solid eye contact with them. And you're baselining them. You're figuring out when you talk to somebody who's got the control, everybody looks to them when a question is asked. Like the room's going to look, and you're looking for the person that the question's going to go to. You're looking for who's not getting attention as well. Like sometimes that's a sign to you that person needs to be talked to. There's people on teams that get attention. There's people who don't. The people who don't get attention typically are willing to tell you more. They could be dangerous to a deal. So if this is you, you have to have conversations with your team about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. What are the nonverbal signs that someone's lying or withholding information during business negotiations? In general, when people touch their face after they make a statement, it could be considered a lie. I can't say it is. I'm saying it could be. There's a thing called a Pinocchio effect. So people, when they tell a lie, they can touch their nose. So if I'm having conversations and I'm saying, hey, it's 85 degrees outside and it's 85 and I touch my nose, that's not me lying. But if I say it's 85 degrees outside and there's snow and I touch my nose, that's a sign that I'm not telling the truth. So touching the face is usually a very good indicator. And then there's a thing called shoveling. So let's say that I say, I love being cold. And then I take my hand and I put my hand towards my face, like my palm towards my face, like I'm trying to put the words back into my mouth. I have seen people lie about deal valuations where they say, this is the best deal that we can do. And then they take their hand and it's like they're shoveling in their hand. And this, not all the time is this in front of their face. Sometimes it's in front of their body. And then the right thing to do is to ask them, are you sure? Are you certain? And then not say anything else. One of the things that people tend to do when they're not telling the truth or when they're lying is they may not give you really good eye contact. One of the things that people may do when they tell a lie is shift. One of the things that I spot very well when people lie is stress in the bottom lower chin. But people will grind their teeth, and because they're not used to lying, it's uncomfortable for them. So, this happens a lot in negotiations where someone will say, this is the best that I can do. And then sometimes you can hear them smash their teeth together. And you're like, maybe not the truth. We should ask some questions here. We should absolutely ask some questions here. And then licking the lips and lip pursing. So sometimes people will lick their lips because they're greasing their mouth so they could tell a lie. And then what they'll do is they will take their lips and they will smash them together and then bend them in over their teeth. That's lip pursing. And so I have seen deals where people use all of these. I have seen deals where people use some of these. And then I've seen stone cold psychopaths that you can't read. That they have lied enough in their life that they're good at it and they don't have feelings and emotions towards it. So you're not ever going to tell. So there's no 100%. There's times where I'm wrong, but I'll take a percentage of being right over not knowing any day of the week. How do I use body language to slow down a negotiation when the buyer's pushing too hard? All right. So part of this is going to be the distance of how far away you are from the person. And if you're sitting, one of the things you can do is you can just push your chair back about 2 or 3 inches. And just look at them and just kind of shake your head up and down. But don't say anything. People are very uncomfortable with silence. And what you're doing is you're signaling, hey, I'm thinking, let me think. And then what that does is that gives you a time, 3 seconds, 7 seconds. It's a long time in conversation, 10 seconds to come back and give an answer. But you want to practice how you respond to somebody pushing on you too hard in a deal. These are things that you can absolutely practice, and it's going to take you all of about 45 minutes. And if it means a couple $100,000 or a couple $1,000,000 to you, it's a smart investment. 45 minutes, a couple $100,000, I'll do it. I would do it. I would do it in a heartbeat. Like right now. I would do it as we speak. Like, that's how important it is. How do you use body language to slow a deal down? You can actually take your hands and give we gotta slow this down. Like you're taking your hands and you're putting them in front of them, like stop, and then you're pushing them. Like, we gotta slow down. You could take a breath. You can say, this isn't what I was expecting. We got to take a beat here. And then just stop talking and just look at the person and tilt your head forward. Like you've just asked a question. Okay. What does eye contact tell you about trust levels during business sale conversations? To begin with, any time that you're reading body language, you really want to baseline the deal. You really want to see how people interact and see what they do. What you want to see, if you bring up an uncomfortable topic, what people do with their eyes and how fast they move. And this is done for a reason, because sometimes when people lie, they don't want to have good solid eye contact with you. They don't want to look at you and look at you in the face and have that conversation. So eye contact, you want a baseline to see what's normal. And if it's not normal and they're not making eye contact and they say this is the best deal that we can give you, this is where you're going to ask that question. Are you sure? Are you certain? Because it doesn't seem like it. Eye contact reveals a lot about people. So people who have some confidence issues personally may not make solid eye contact. People who are hiding information may not make solid eye contact. People who are psychopaths can lie and make really solid eye contact, and you would never know the difference. But you do have to get used to how other people communicate. How do I control my own body language when I receive a lowball offer so I don't show my reaction? You absolutely want to practice your reactions and the language that you're going to use for any stretch of the conversation you're going to have. And we're going to say that you expect to get 10 million for your company. It's an easy number. And so what you would do is you would practice your reaction at 15 million. You would practice your reaction at 10 million. You would practice your reaction at 3 million. You're practicing across the board. And one of the ways that you can do this is you can sit in a chair and you can have people say uncomfortable things to you and then thank them for it. This is not, I'm going to share with you, this is not an easy thing to do. But what you're training your body to do is to not react. What you're training yourself to do is to say it's not emotional, it's numbers. Let's work through this. Like, show me your math. Or you should practice asking, okay, how did you get to your numbers? And then somebody who's good, if they've got an Excel Eddy, somebody who's good is going to say, hey, here's how we scored it. We looked at the quality of earnings. We looked at client concentration. We looked at all the risk factors. And, we wanted to give you 10 million, but we're going to have to give you 3 because of these 12 answers. And then if you have a seller's thesis or a Titan's thesis that proves them otherwise, that's when you would say, I have some information you probably want to see. Not aggressive, not over the top, but you want to practice the 5 or 6 ways that you would answer. I'm going to give you more for your company, the exact amount that you thought, or we're going to give you less. And then you want to videotape it. Because if you've never done this before and you've never had these types of conversations, for somebody who's done a ton of deals, it's going to stick out to them like a sore thumb. What are the body language differences between a motivated buyer and a tire kicker? Tire kickers tend to be impatient. They're going to just give me the information. They're going to flash contempt really fast. Just give me the information. They're going to tilt their head towards the door like they're trying to leave. That's one sign. They're going to use faster gestures. Like if your normal speed is at 1, they're going to use 1.25. It's not like excessively faster. But what you're looking for is how close they stand to you. Like sometimes a tire kicker is going to be very confrontational right to the front. Sometimes they're going to stand far away. But what you're looking for is how they treat you when the conversation starts. And the opening of that conversation matters. Like sometimes when people say, can we just get to it? That's an interesting place to start. Tell me how we got there. Well, I don't have a lot of time. Okay, well, I mean, you're purchasing a company from me. I would prefer to work with somebody who does have time. You should practice these statements. I'm going to let you know that a good qualified buyer isn't going to play games like this. They don't want to. They don't want to spend the money on due diligence. They don't want to risk their reputation inside of their office. But somebody who's just pushing for numbers, they're going to ask questions fast. They're going to be impatient with you. They may even do a hand roll. Like, come on, get to it. I will share this with you in my personal life. The second that somebody shows me a hand roll and like get on with it, I'm out. I don't want to do a deal with them. I don't. Because to me, it's one of the most disrespectful things that you could do. Like, oh, you want to be impatient with me? You want to roll your hand? You want to tell me that I need to speed up? You're not a movie producer. Like, you asked something specific for me, whether it was to do a deal with you, or for me to purchase, make a purchase from you, and you want me to speed up. Like that's a sign to me it's an immature deal, and I shouldn't be doing it. How do I use strategic silence and nonverbal presence to hold my position in a negotiation? When you're using body language, there's certain playbooks that you could use, but when you overuse them, you're going to lose your ability. Most people in negotiations have 3 or 4 moves, and that's it. I've sat across the table on thousands of deals in home sales, and I've sat across the table at deals for M&A. And every buyer, every seller only has so many moves that they're going to make, and then they're out. They don't have any more. And so one of them is extended silence. So you can use silence to your advantage maybe once or twice in the deal. You could use turning your body like you're not interested in a deal once or twice. You could use anchoring in a deal where you put something favorable in a specific spot of the table and only talk about good things. And every time something good comes up, you talk about the good things. So let's say that you're having a conversation with me and you tell me, hey, I like Hawaii. So I'm going to find a spot on the table that I'm going to designate good in your right eye. And I'm going to tap the table. Every time you say something good, I'm going to tap in that spot. And every time that somebody says something bad, I'm going to find a spot in your left eye and I'm going to tap the table in a different location. And then when it comes to me putting a contract on the table, an agreement on the table, anything that I need you to take seriously, I'm going to put it in the good spot. This is called anchoring. There's a guy named Tom Vizzini and his partner, Kim McFarland, are exceptional at teaching this. Right? I've learned this from Tim and Kim, like that you can use spatial anchoring to your advantage. So strategic silence and nonverbal presence, you don't have to say anything to anchor. You can literally just tap the table and people will spatially remember where that piece of information is held. You can absolutely use that to your advantage. How does mirroring body language affect trust building in business acquisition conversations? When it's genuine, it's freaking awesome. When it's fake, people know. As a general rule, I don't really mirror people. It's not something that I try to do, especially for the first 10 or 15 minutes of a meeting, because we're not comfortable with each other yet. I don't want somebody to say like, oh, you're just trying to manipulate me. You're just trying to get on. I folded my arms. Okay, you're folding your arms. Synchronicity or rapport happens real time and live, and there's plenty of people who teach pacing and leading, and get the people to be on your side with body language. There's absolutely a time and place for it, but there's other things to focus on with nonverbal communication and body language inside of a deal than mirroring. It's a cool. I'm going to use it as a tactic and not a strategy. How do I read body language over video calls when meeting with buyers or investors remotely? You're going to use all the same tells and signs that you use when you're live. You're looking for distractions for one. You want to see, are they paying attention? You can tell when somebody's on a laptop when they're typing and they're not paying it. They're looking at the sports scores, or they're booking tickets to a trip, or you know when you've lost them. And I think that one of the things that if you're going to have a meeting and you're going to have a conversation, one of the rules is everybody's camera's on. Like that's a ground rule. This is like when you're starting a meeting, you negotiate. Hey, if we're going to do group meetings, I'm going to request that everybody's camera's on because I want to see who I'm having a conversation with. We're talking a lot of money. And so there's nothing wrong with making that request. And you're going to have some people who push back. I have people in my life that I know that don't like to be on camera. They don't like the way they look on camera, so they won't jump on camera. But I'm gonna, if they were in the room, I would at least make the request. Can you turn your cameras on so we can have a good conversation here? Because what you're looking for is, are they interested? Are they distracted? Do they show signs of disgust? Do they show signs of contempt? Are they blown away in their seats? Are they spooning information back into their mouth because, well, they're not telling you the truth? Are they touching their face a lot? So you're looking for signs of confidence. Are they sitting up in their seat? Are their shoulders square? Are they making head movements? So with rapport, one of the things that you can do that's really easy is you just start shaking your head like yes, and people that are in rapport with you will start shaking their head yes. I do this all the time. You watch enough videos of me, I'm going to shake my head yes. And here's the thing. There's going to be a time where you catch yourself and you're at home, you're in an office, and you're watching a video and you're shaking your head yes. So what you want to look for is that synchronicity, and not in the beginning of a meeting. You can jump on the call and just kind of shake your head a couple of times to start the meeting, but I wouldn't do this for probably 10 or 15 minutes. I would wait a little bit. And if I'm talking, I'm shaking my head. Like, yep. And it's a natural thing for me to do over this time. What are the nonverbal signals to tell you when the right moment to push for a decision in a business negotiation? In any meeting, there's always a couple of minutes where there's some silence. You've delivered all the information that you can, and you get the look where people kind of tilt their head towards you forward and they're looking, and you know that they want to ask you a question, and they got a question. You can say, hey, is it time to wrap this up? Ready to get this done? Just really straightforward and to the point. The more complicated the question, the less chance you have of it being answered. You just want to make it as easy as possible. Want to know the next steps? In sales, they got this thing called the redneck close. They'll say, want one? You ready to get started? Just really calm, really easy. And you can shake your head when you do it. Ready to get started? You can open your palms to show like you're not a threat. Ready to get started? With a smile on your face. Right? Smiles on your face don't ever hurt anything unless they're creepy. You don't want a creepy smile. This is why it's very important for you to record your presentations. What does a handshake tell you about a buyer's personality and negotiation style before talks begin? This one's important. When somebody shakes your hand, if you put your hand in front of you and you put it straight up and down, that your thumb is in the 12 o'clock position, and somebody shakes your hand with your thumb and their thumb in the 12 o'clock position, that's an equal handshake, okay? If you take your hand and you rotate your thumb to the 2 o'clock position, you're now passive in a handshake. If you take your hand and you rotate it to the 11 o'clock position, you're now aggressive. Now, some people do this on purpose. Some people don't even realize that they're taking power in a meeting. So you're going to want to baseline them. A good handshake is 3 solid pumps. Somebody puts their hands out, you shake, you grasp slightly, not enough that it's too light, not enough that it's not enough, or too much, and you're going to shake. And then 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to smile and look at them on the last shake. You're going to look them in the eye and smile. When somebody comes at you and they're super aggressive and they squeeze your hand too hard, there is a place that you can push on the web of the thumb. If you're watching the video, I'm showing it, that you push very slightly. It'll release the muscles in the hand. Not all the way, but it's a way for you to, when somebody shakes your hand, to say, hey, wait, you need to back off here for a second. And I will let you know this, that when people shake their hand and they're aggressive like that, it's usually a sign of fear. It's not a sign of confidence. It's a sign like, hey, I have to do this my way. I'm scared if I don't do this my way. How do I use body language to establish authority when I'm the seller and the buyer has more resources? One, you're going to practice your presentation and you're going to do everything you can to present confidence. You're going to present sitting up straight. You are going to make sure that your vocal pitch and tone is on cue, that you speak in short sentences, that you're scripted to a very good extent, that you are able to answer questions or concerns that buyer has without lying, that you know your numbers backwards and forwards, that you have your ask ready, and that you can defend it, whether it's a seller's thesis or a Titan's thesis. Private equity is going to have more resources than you no matter what. Right? This is a given. Big giant corporations are going to have more resources and they know it. And the bad companies are going to use it against you. The good companies aren't even going to mention it. Now, here's the thing. You can come off overly aggressive. You can do the wrong thing. It may not be to your benefit to go in there and be super aggressive and try to be something that you're not. There is a rhythm to deals. If you've done enough deals, you hear sonically when somebody's making something up. It just doesn't feel right. If you've done enough deals, you know when somebody's playing games. And a good deal maker is going to call you out for it. So one, you got to add, you've got to be you. You have to be you. But you have to practice. What are the physical stress signals business owners show during negotiations that buyers are trained to spot? Well, if somebody's asked a question and they're constantly looking at the owner to answer it, it means that the team doesn't have their information down. If a question gets asked and everybody's looking around the table like who's going to answer it, it's a sign that the deal has some immaturity, or it's a sign that there's a problem inside of the deal. You want everybody on the team to be briefed. You want to be prepared for the 10 or 15 toughest questions that are going to be asked of you. And they're going to be about your books. They're going to be about your people. They're going to be about legal. And so when you're having these conversations, the stress is going to show up in the jaw. It's going to show up in the mouth. It's going to show up in eye contact. So somebody who's stressed out, they may bend their shoulders over and take a deep breath and not make eye contact, or they're angry and seething mad and they're looking out the window, and these are all signs that there's something wrong. Now, conversely, when people go into a deal and they're overly excited about a deal, or they use way too much eye contact, or they use way too much aggression, that pendulum is swung the other direction. And that's a problem as well. How do I use body language awareness to get a better outcome in an earn-in negotiation? When you're doing any body language spotting, reading, when you're doing any nonverbal communication, you're always going to start with the baseline. You're always going to start and figure out, what do people do? So one of the things that you can use is a mirror when somebody's very comfortable. So what you're not looking to mirror them through the whole meeting. You're looking for a selective spot where you can mirror them. You're looking for one space in this meeting where you can use that time, so to speak, to your advantage. So if when they're contemplating something and they touch their chin and they lean forward, you're going to mirror that action, but you're going to save it. You've got one chance, one opportunity to make this work. And so if you're at a point where you're trying to negotiate and you're looking for the best opportunity, you're looking for a spot of silence where you're going to ask a question, and then you're just going to slightly tilt your head forward and give like a slight smile and shake your head yes. And then don't say anything at all. How can I use anchoring or nonverbal communication to get a better deal? All right. Anchoring is this. We have spatial grids around us. And so let's just say for you and for me, there's a grid 100 squares up by 100 squares to the left and to the right. Okay. So there's a total of 1,000 squares. Our brain remembers where information gets held, whether we talk about it or not. So if I'm sitting at a table and I'm having a conversation and I'm sitting in your right eye and I can put something on the table like a pen, and every time you bring up a good point that you're excited about, I put that pen in that spot. Now, let's say you talk about something bad or something that you don't want to have as an outcome. You put that pen on a specific spot on their left side, in their left eye, on the table. And anchoring can be through that pen. It could be through a glass of water. I've seen Tom Vizzini, who taught me this, use a sugar packet. I've seen somebody use a quarter. I've seen somebody use a contract. When somebody says something good, you can make a hand gesture. You could rub your fingers together in a place where they see it just once or twice. And when they say something bad, you can use a different hand gesture, on a different side of your body. I use what are called hand tilts. So when I'm talking about something good, I'm going to take my right hand and I'm going to put it about shoulder height. And when I talk about something bad, I'm going to take my left hand and I'm going to put it a couple inches lower than my left shoulder. And so somebody says, hey, Scott, we got a deal for you that we really want you to sign. And I take a look at it and it's not that good of a deal. I may use my left hand. I'm going to use a lower hand tilt and say, I like the deal, but what I'm really looking for, and I'm going to use my right hand, I'm going to shift over, is the deal based upon my Titan thesis. And then I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let them qualify. I'm going to let them have a conversation. You can absolutely use body language and nonverbal communication to your advantage, but you really want to learn baselining before you go down this path so you don't make mistakes. Mahalo for listening to the Scott Sylvan Bell Business Growth and Exit Strategy podcast. Here's what's available to you right now. First, subscribe to this podcast so you get every framework we release. Second, visit scottsylvanbell.com to access the Sell Framework, Scale Framework, and Driver Test. All free with complete scoring guides and implementation worksheets. Third, subscribe to my weekly newsletter, The Party, where I break down strategies and frameworks you won't find anywhere else with one actionable insight every week. Go to scottsylvanbell.com and enter your email. And if this episode added value, share it with another business owner building a $10 million to $250 million company. Until next time, keep building companies that command maximum multiples. Aloha.